No one warned Daniel Hopper about the house on Hollow Creek Road. It didn't look haunted. That was the unsettling part. It looked normal. Too normal. White wooden walls. A clean porch. Windows that reflected the sky perfectly, as if nothing inside wanted to be seen. When Daniel first stood across the street, holding the keys in his shaking hand, he felt something strange. Not fear exactly, but resistance. Like his body didn't want to cross the lawn. He laughed it off. Stress, he told himself. New town, new job, new life. Daniel had moved to rural Pennsylvania after his divorce, desperate for silence. The city had become unbearable. Constant noise, constant reminders of everything he'd lost. The house was cheap, almost suspiciously cheap. But the realtor had smiled too easily and said, "It's been empty for a while. Some people just don't stay long." Daniel didn't ask why. He stepped inside. The air felt colder than it should have been. Not damp, not stale, just heavy, like the house was holding its breath. The floorboards didn't creak. They absorbed his footsteps, swallowing sound. That should have been comforting. Instead, it made him feel alone in a way he couldn't explain. The first night passed quietly. Too quietly. Daniel woke up at 3:07 a.m. for no reason at all. His eyes snapped open, heart racing, as if someone had called his name. The room was dark, but not fully. Moonlight spilled through the window, stopping just short of the bed. He noticed then that the house was completely silent. No wind, no insects, no distant cars, nothing. And then he heard it, breathing. Not his own. It was slow, careful, measured, coming from somewhere inside the room. Daniel held his breath, listening. The sound stopped. He didn't sleep again that night. The days were easier. The house behaved itself when the sun was out. Daniel worked remotely, spent hours on his laptop, convincing himself that exhaustion was playing tricks on his mind. But small things began to change. Objects were never where he left them. A mug on the counter would appear in the sink. Doors he was certain he had closed stood open. When he returned, the hallway seemed longer at night, stretching just enough to feel wrong. Then came the whispers. They weren't words at first, just fragments, soft sounds that crawled into his ears when the house was quiet. They came from the walls, from the vents, from behind him when he was sure he was alone. Daniel stopped inviting people over. He dreamed of the house growing inward, rooms folding into each other, hallways twisting like veins. He dreamed of standing in the living room while the walls leaned closer, whispering his name in voices that sounded like people he used to know. His ex-wife, his father, himself. "You're safe here," the voices said. "You don't have to leave. We'll take care of you." Daniel woke up, crying. He tried to leave the next morning. His car wouldn't start. The battery was dead, even though it was new. His phone had no signal. The landline produced only static, layered with faint whispering beneath it. When he stepped outside, the road looked wrong. Longer, narrower, like it had been stretched thin. The trees leaned inward, branches tangled overhead like grasping fingers. The house stood behind him, silent and patient, waiting. Daniel ran. He didn't make it far. The road looped back to the house, no matter which direction he took. Every path curved gently, subtly, until he was standing on the front lawn again, gasping for breath. The house hadn't moved, but the door was open. Inside, the air felt warmer now, welcoming. The whispers were clearer. "You're tired," they said. The world hurt you. Stay. Daniel barricaded himself in the bedroom that night, pushing furniture against the door. He sat in the corner, clutching a kitchen knife, eyes fixed on the handle. At 3:07 a.m., the breathing returned. This time, it came from the other side of the door. The handle turned slowly. The furniture slid aside effortlessly, as if moved by invisible hands. The door opened. The hallway beyond was no longer the hallway he knew. It pulsed. The walls moved like living skin, faces pressed against them from the inside, mouths open in silent screams. They looked familiar, former residents, people who had tried to leave. The house didn't chase Daniel. It didn't need to. The floor beneath him softened, pulling at his feet. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, drowning his thoughts. You belong here. You're part of us now. Rest. Daniel felt his memories slipping. The pain that had followed him for years dulled. The fear faded. The exhaustion lifted. For a moment, staying felt easier than fighting. That was the house's secret. It didn't trap you with force. The voices that sound like you. Ethan Miller never believed in the supernatural. He believed in explanations, logic, psychology. That belief began to rot the night he heard his own voice calling him from inside an empty apartment. It started after the move, after the breakup, after the silence became too loud. Ethan relocated to a mid-sized apartment complex in Ohio, the kind built in the early 2000s. Thin walls, neutral paint, no personality. Exactly what he wanted. A place that didn't ask questions. A place where nothing followed him. The first week was normal. The second week was quiet. By the third week, the quiet felt intentional. No neighbors, no footsteps, no muffled TVs through the walls. Just stillness so complete it felt engineered. Then came the sound. Ethan was lying in bed, scrolling through his phone, when he heard it clearly for the first time. Ethan. It came from the hallway, his own voice. Same tone, same hesitation at the end of the word. Even the slight rasp from years of caffeine and late nights. He froze. "Hello?" he called out. Silence. He got up slowly, heart pounding, and stepped into the hallway. The lights flickered, then stabilized. The apartment was empty, door locked, windows shut. He laughed nervously. Auditory hallucinations, he told himself. Stress response. The brain misfiring under isolation. That explanation lasted exactly one day. The next night, the voice came again. This time, it was closer. From the bathroom. "I'm in here," it said. "Don't be scared." Ethan backed away. Breath shallow. His reflection stared at him from the darkened bathroom mirror, and then the reflection spoke. "You look exhausted." Ethan screamed and slammed the door shut. "The voices that sound like you." Ethan Miller never believed in the supernatural. He believed in explanations, logic, psychology. That belief began to rot the night he heard his own voice calling him from inside an empty apartment. It started after the move, after the breakup, after the silence became too loud. Ethan relocated to a mid-sized apartment complex in Ohio, the kind built in the early 2000s. Thin walls, neutral paint, no personality. Exactly what he wanted. A place that didn't ask questions. A place where nothing followed him. The first week was normal. The second week was quiet. By the third week, the quiet felt intentional. No neighbors, no footsteps, no muffled TVs through the walls. Just stillness so complete it felt engineered. Then came the sound. Ethan was lying in bed, scrolling through his phone, when he heard it clearly for the first time. Ethan. It came from the hallway, His own voice, same tone, same hesitation at the end of the word. Even the slight rasp from years of caffeine and late nights. He froze. "Hello," he called out. Silence. He got up slowly, heart pounding, and stepped into the hallway. The lights flickered, then stabilized. The apartment was empty, door locked, windows shut. He laughed nervously. Auditory hallucinations, he told himself. Stress response. The brain misfiring under isolation. That explanation lasted exactly one day. The next night, the voice came again. This time, it was closer. From the bathroom. "I'm in here," it said. "Don't be scared." Ethan backed away, breath shallow. His reflection stared at him from the darkened bathroom mirror. And then the reflection spoke. "You look exhausted." Ethan screamed and slammed the door shut. When he reached the stairwell, his phone vibrated. A voicemail from his own number. He played it, breathing, then whispering, "You can't leave what you brought with you." The realization hit him like ice water. The voice hadn't come from the apartment. It had come with him. The thing wearing his voice grew stronger the more isolated he became. It thrived on his withdrawal, his self-doubt, his exhaustion. It fed on attention. That night, Ethan stood in front of the bathroom mirror, hands shaking. "Who are you?" he asked. The reflection tilted its head. "I'm the version of you that never gets hurt again," it replied. "The one that doesn't need anyone. The one that stays." The mirror cracked. Not shattered. Cracked, like a spreading fracture through reality. Behind the glass was darkness, and inside that darkness countless versions of Ethan stared back, all whispering, all smiling. "You're tired of pretending," they said together. "Let us take over." The lights went out. In the darkness, hands grabbed him, not physical, but internal. Memories rewrote themselves. Emotions flattened. Fear softened into numbness. He felt himself slipping backward, watching his body move without him. The voice spoke one last time. Gently. "Rest now." "I've got this." The next morning, a neighbor saw Ethan in the hallway. He smiled. Calm. Centered. Different. "Everything okay?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Better than ever," he said, but his voice was just slightly wrong. Inside the apartment, behind the walls, something listened, waiting for the next lonely tenant. Waiting for the next lonely tenant. The room that remembers you. The room wasn't supposed to exist. That was the first thing Laura Bennett noticed. She was certain of it because she had memorized the floor plan of her house the night she bought it. A small, single-story home in rural Vermont. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, living room, kitchen. Nothing more. No extra space. No forgotten corners. So when she opened the hallway door on a quiet Sunday evening and saw a narrow doorway at the very end, one she had never seen before, her stomach tightened. The door was old, older than the rest of the house. Dark wood, scratched deeply, like something had tried to claw its way out. She stood there for a long time, convincing herself she had simply overlooked it. People miss things all the time, don't they? Laura reached for the handle. The moment her fingers touched it, a wave of dizziness washed over her. Not physical, mental, like standing too quickly after a nightmare. The house felt, aware she pulled her hand back. That night, she dreamed of the room. In the dream, she stood inside it, though she didn't remember entering. The walls were bare, painted a dull gray that absorbed light. No windows, no furniture. Just her, and the sound of breathing. Not hers. When she woke up, her sheets were damp with sweat, and her heart felt like it had been running all night. The door was still there in the morning. That was worse, because if it had disappeared, she could have blamed exhaustion. Stress. Her recent move. But it didn't disappear. It waited. Laura tried to ignore it for days, weeks. She avoided the hallway entirely, rearranged her routines, convinced herself that some things didn't need explanations. But the room didn't stay quiet. It began to change the house. At first, it was subtle. Photos in her living room shifted. Childhood pictures she didn't remember owning appeared on the walls. Moments she had tried to forget stared back at her. Arguments. Hospital rooms. Faces she hadn't seen. Hospital rooms. Faces she hadn't seen in years. The house remembered things she didn't want to. Then the sounds started. Soft knocks from inside the walls. Scraping noises at night. And sometimes, when she was half asleep, her name whispered with perfect familiarity. Not threatening. Inviting. Laura finally opened the door on a rainy Thursday evening. The air inside the room was warmer than the rest of the house. Heavy. It smelled faintly of dust and something metallic. The walls felt closer together than they should have been. The moment she stepped inside, the door closed behind her. She spun around, heart racing, but the handle turned easily. The door wasn't locked. That almost made it worse. The room was empty, except for one thing, a mirror. It stood against the far wall, tall and narrow, its surface slightly warped. When Laura approached, a reflection stared back at her, but it didn't feel like a reflection. It felt like eye contact. "You came back," the reflection said. Laura staggered backward. "I've never been here." The reflection smiled. "Yes, you have." The room changed after that. Every time Laura entered, it showed her something new. Memories she had buried, regrets she had never spoken aloud, versions of her life that could have been. A career she quit too early, a relationship she walked away from, a phone call she never returned. The room didn't accuse her. It understood her. And that understanding was intoxicating. She began spending hours there, days. Time behaved differently inside. She would step in during the afternoon and leave to find the sky dark, her phone filled with missed calls she didn't remember ignoring. The outside world started to feel unreal, loud, demanding. The room was quiet, honest. The room listened. One night, Laura noticed something new in the mirror. The reflection was aging faster than she was. Dark circles under the eyes, hair slightly thinner, skin paler. Skin paler. "Why do you look like that?" Laura asked. The reflection tilted its head. "Because I stay." Panic flared. Laura decided to leave the house for good. She packed quickly, avoiding the hallway, refusing to look at the door. But as she dragged her suitcase toward the front door, the house shifted. The hallway stretched. The front door moved farther away, and the room appeared behind her. "You don't need to run," the reflection said, now standing beside her, no longer confined to the mirror. It wore her face perfectly. The house closed in. Walls leaned, ceilings lowered. The world narrowed to the room, and the thing that knew her better than anyone else ever had. "You left parts of yourself here," it whispered. "I kept them safe. You can rest now." Laura screamed and ran into the room, slamming the door behind her. Darkness swallowed everything. Silence. Then warmth. When the door opened again, the house was calm. The room was gone. Weeks later, A realtor showed the house to a young woman looking for a quiet place to start over. "This house has a strange feeling," the woman said softly. The realtor smiled. "Most people say it feels familiar. Somewhere deep within the walls, something shifted and remembered."